For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Sashni Midley. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me to discuss lessons of the Christchurch massacre. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Why do you believe that the Christchurch massacre in New Zealand has lessons for South Africa?
Well, frankly, I hadn't studied it carefully. And on the weekend, I was planning to write on something else. But then I watched the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Ardern, comforting the relatives of those who had been massacred. And some of what she said resonated with me because I had a sense that the way they dealt with this massacre was very, very carefully prepared. They didn't just go and say, "Oh, we're very sorry, our condolences to all of you." She went there and she thought, these are only 5,000 people who've come to New Zealand out of a population of 5 million. But they thought some of the people who died are breadwinners. Some of them are this, some of them are that. So she went there wearing a hijab, which was very respectful, and the police women were also wearing, female police officers were also wearing hijab. And then she said, "Look, we know that your losses are not just emotional, they're also material. And we're offering you, we have, in terms of the laws of New Zealand, got the capacity to offer you compensation, not just for weeks, but for years." And I was very impressed with this. But you could see that their sorrow was her sorrow. But it wasn't just her, it was the leadership set an example which the people of New Zealand also replicated, in the sense that you could see people crying, ordinary New Zealanders crying with them in the streets. The Prime Minister also, she's very substantial in terms of her thinking when she said, this man has committed this terrorist act and he did it to get notoriety, like he had it put on Facebook. She says, "I will not mention his name. You will not hear his name from my lips. Let us rather say the names of those who died." And I think this was very profound. Also, what impressed me in the world that we live in America, where people are dying of gun wounds every day, within a day they had banned all automatic, semi-automatic weapons and components that could be used. And I think this was a lesson. And when Trump phoned her and said, "Can the United States assist in any way?" she says, "You can show love to Muslim people everywhere." And I thought that was very impressive.
And you draw a distinction between community attitudes towards foreign nationals and that of the states. Is that valid, in fact?
Well, in South Africa, leaders like to distance themselves from attacks and claim that this is acts of criminals and things like that. But my belief is that if the state, as in New Zealand, creates a climate which engenders respect towards foreign nationals, which says to them, as the Prime Minister of New Zealand said, which I thought was very, very important, "This is your home. This is our loss." In other words, the people who have made South Africa our home, we embrace them like we were embraced when our freedom fighters went to other states of Africa. So I think that the example set at the top filters down. But my impression is that in very many communities there's very good relations between foreign nationals and South Africans. It's sometimes business people who are resentful of the success of foreign business people and sometimes inciting things, but it's also statements of government officials. You won't find people in the local communities talking about undocumented migrants. You might find sometimes people complaining that there's a brothel here or there are drugs there, this, that and the other. Now, where that emanates from is not from the general attitude of communities. Now, it's interesting, if you study the history, there is a community, I think it's people from Cameroon, in a part of Soweto from the 1940s, from that area. Well, it wasn't Soweto then, but the people who've been settled in South Africa, you've got people who've come here from just about every southern African state as well, but from Cameroon, if I remember correctly, it's Cameroon, somewhere very far away. So it's not a new thing to have foreign people in your midst, and there are a lot of cultural reasons why people make them feel at home.
And why do you think there are lessons to be learned from the New Zealand Prime Minister's leadership?
Well, she didn't just understand what happened. She had compassion. The way she related to them. Have you ever seen a single South African minister going to the communities that have come under attack and hugging them and expressing their condolences? You never see that. Never see. You don't see their presence. The only time you see an official presence is when they go and arrest them, or when they examine the food to see if it's contaminated and all sorts of nonsense like that. You have never seen this level of empathy at an official level. And it's very, very important as an example that leadership can have integrity, leadership can have intellectual substance, but leadership can also have compassion for the wounded, for the vulnerable, for the poor.
Thanks for speaking with us, Professor.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about lessons of the Christchurch massacre.